All right, I'm here with Mark Shuttleworth in Austin, Texas. Mark, how you doing?
Great, good to see you again, Barton.
It's always a pleasure. So you came down here for the barbecue, right?
Indeed, and the weather.
Okay, of course. And so now you've just been at both IDF, the Intel Developer Forum, and also up at Linux. What are they calling it?
LinuxCon, which was the sort of business end of the Plumbers Conference.
Okay.
This year.
And what were some of the things that you talked about at one and then the other?
IDF was the launch of the Dow Inspiron Mini 10V, the developer edition of the Moblin Remix. So that's Ubuntu with the Moblin user experience, which is really very cool. If people haven't tried it, I can highly recommend it. It's worth a download, worth a play, and now available on dell.com/Ubuntu.
There you go, I like it.
So yeah, the first Moblin device, a Dell device.
Oh, nice.
With Ubuntu on it. And then up in Portland, it was at LinuxCon, and I was talking about sort of three key areas where I think we can do better at raising the game in free software. Better cadence, this idea of getting everybody onto time-based releases, and then having meta cycles with long-term releases sort of layered on top of that, which I think is gaining traction. More and more people are talking about it, so I was happy about that. Quality, focusing on practices to improve the quality of free software. Because even though it's very good, it could be better. Mm-hmm. And then design. I've become really interested in design and built a nice design team in Canonical that I enjoy working with. So sort of learning how to bring together the world of design and the world of free software engineering, and try to get these two groups of intense professionals to talk to each other.
Oh, very cool. So getting back to that cadence thing, good to hear that it's going well. Now, you had sort of floated this before at, I guess it was at DebConf, at the Debian conference, or was this, and there was sort of a kerfluffle that came up? It seemed like initially it was,
okay. Things I want to do
yes,
in the Debian community.
Yes,
it became controversial. So what had happened on that is we were getting onto a pretty good cadence of 2-year releases for our LTSs, and talking to other people, lots of folks said, well, why don't we try and do this across multiple distributions? The natural first step for us is Debian. So we started speaking with the Debian release team, which you'd think is sort of empowered and authorized to think about matters associated with release.
Right.
Turns out Debian's releases since Ubuntu came along, us doing a 6-month release, snapshotting, tightening, releasing, QA, and shipping, and pushing that stuff back to Debian has made it easier for Debian actually to make their releases. So since Ubuntu's been around, Debian's releases have been roughly 22 months. So 22 months, 24 months, it's a bit of a wash. So the Debian release team got excited about this and said, hey, we can actually align very nicely. Let's sit down in December and we'll freeze in December for Debian. That caused a panic in the broader Debian community. What's been salvaged from that is essentially what I thought was really important, which was to try to have good quality conversations with the leads of the key subsystems within both Debian and Ubuntu. So things like kernel, X, OpenOffice, GNOME, KDE, the tool chain, big chunks that define the character of the whole release.
Right.
And so while we won't have a sort of simultaneous freeze effectively between Debian and Ubuntu for this release, we are going to have that process of trying to establish commonality, which will lead to better collaboration, better coordination, and ultimately, strengthen the overall meta cadence. And maybe in sort of 4 years, we'll have Red Hat joining us.
Oh, interesting.
We'll have the whole free software system kind of in a 2-year cycle. It'll be amazing.
Good stuff. Now, turning back to what you all are working on, you've got next month coming out Koala, which is your cloud offering that's sort of taking on where Jaunty left off.
Indeed.
And koalas love to eat eucalyptus, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So with Karmic, we move all the cloud stuff into our main supported archive. Karmic is obviously the preparatory release for our LTS release, which is 10.04. It's looking really good. We have eucalyptus 1.6. There's a bunch of work being done both across the private cloud stuff and across EC2. So for us, we treat the cloud as one seamless platform from EC2, the public cloud, right the way through to the private cloud stuff, UEC powered by Eucalyptus. Folks are welcome to test Comic Alpha 6, which went out last week. The beta, I think, is next week. And that will be where folks really get to kick the tires. The goal is to be able to deploy your own cloud across 5 or 10 servers in 15 minutes to an hour, which is pretty amazing. The goal is to have clouds that are completely EC2 compatible. The goal is also to start to create a resource or like a library of virtual appliances that will deploy instantly either onto EC2 or onto private clouds built on the Ubuntu Enterprise Cloud Framework. So it's fairly ambitious, but the team's really excited and motivated. I think it's going to happen.
Very cool. So now, as you mentioned too, you've got the release after that, which was, excuse me, just announced 2 days ago, is now Lucid Links.
Lucid Links.
Right. And so, good name, Lucid, for a long-term support because it's very, down to earth and
Cogent.
Yes, exactly. So, are you going to advance any of the cloud stuff in that, or are you just going to tighten everything down and make sure it's rock solid?
Oh no, there'll be a significant amount of evolution. The cloud stuff is moving so fast that I think it would be inappropriate to lock that down. On the desktop front, we'll probably take a more conservative approach. That's a bigger stack anyway, so it makes sense to be more conservative there. There have been so many really good things happening on the server. The Java stuff has shaped up really nicely. The whole OpenJDK process is really starting to bear fruit, and so I think that's now moving to the mainstream, which is lovely. And as for the rest, well, UDS is likely to be in Dallas, Texas, so maybe we'll meet again there.
Oh, very cool. So this is the Ubuntu Developer Summit that you're referring to.
Yeah. So that's how we start every cycle with planning out what our goals are.
And what is the date for that?
That I can't tell you. Sometime in I think late November, early December.
Okay. Any thoughts on Windows 7 that's coming out? How that's going to affect the netbook world and what you're thinking?
So credit to Microsoft. I think Windows 7 is a significant. It's a really wonderful service pack on Vista. It addresses a lot of the sort of real obvious shortcomings in Vista. It remains, a proprietary platform that ultimately is limited to the things that its makers allow you to do with it. While it's certainly more credible competition, especially on the netbook, form factors, it doesn't really fundamentally change the dynamic. People wanting to look for greater freedom and more flexibility, stuff that they can only really get on a free software platform.
Excellent. And last but not least, my favorite question, profitability. When we were at DebConf in Argentina a little over a year ago, I think at that time you said 18 months to 2 years. It's been a year. Would you say 6 months to a year from now?
In due course.
In due course. I like that. Well, Mark Shuttleworth, a pleasure as always. Thank you so much.